Welcome back to NABLiveshow.com. I'm your host, Deborah Kaufman of Entertainment Technology Center at USC. We're wrapping up this hour with a panel that's looking at not just the on-set dailies that we discussed yesterday, but on-set color decisions. And I have a couple people here that have, very close experiences with doing exactly that. Directly to my left, I have Jesse Korosi, who's Director of Workflow Services for Bling Digital. And next to him, Amy Hawthorne, Director of Product Support at MTI Film. So I'd like you to each talk a little bit about, maybe Jesse, you can start off by telling us a little bit about the services that Bling Digital offers and how on-set services is part of that.
Sure, okay. Well, Bling is a part of the SIM group, and we focus on dailies, and we also provide video assist and the IT carts and data management, and the SIM group as a whole is more of an end-to-end solution, starting all the way from camera through to the dailies service, and we do on-set 24-frame playback, and we do offline Avid rentals. We do the creative editing as well at Chainsaw, and we have finishing at Pixel in Toronto, and Chainsaw we do finishing, and we've just acquired a sound company in Toronto as well.
So now you've always done digital dailies, correct? Or for how long have you done digital
My
dailies?
background, I kind of jumped around between a lot of different things, which really helped me land in where I am today in workflow. I started out working doing 3D modeling, and then I got into compositing. Then I started doing on-set visual effects editing, then color, and then somehow it all came together where this new idea of workflow came about.
Okay, and I know Bling has been engaged in this kind of, they're very big on workflow and doing a lot on the set. So how has that grown? I don't know how long you've been at Bling, but...
Okay, well, I was the first employee. The founders of the company decided that, they would go into the lab business. So they brought me on, and that was about 5.5, 6 years ago now, and it's grown quite immensely. We have offices now in Toronto and Vancouver and LA and New York and Atlanta, and take jobs all around the world. So I've been kind of jumping around spot to spot and helping out the division, and now I oversee the technical side of the workflow division.
And this is, when you say the workflow division, are we just talking about digital dailies here?
Mainly dailies is my focus. I'll touch on the other elements to make sure that the dailies labs and the workflows that we're implementing make sense, and that if we are offering the front end and the back end, I'll get more involved. But typically when another camera facility is on board or another post house is on board, I'll just focus on dailies.
Great. Now, Amy, we had Larry Chernoff here on Monday to talk about restoration.
Yes.
But this is a totally different thing. So MTI obviously does more than restoration.
We do a lot of things.
Yeah, you do. Tell me a little bit about MTI Film's involvement in digital dailies.
Absolutely. So we're actually involved in two different ways. So we're a full-service post house that does dailies and finishing. That could be on-set, near-set, or within our own facility. And we also make the software Cortex, which is digital dailies software automation, really for your workflow. And we sell that into a number of different studios and facilities around town as well. So we're kind of both sides of that coin there, where we eat our own dog food, we feel the pain, but we also provide solutions to other people.
Well, that's good. That's interesting. So obviously, digital dailies was a new idea some years ago, but it's become increasingly popular. There's a lot of people who provide it, who create their own services. And that's something that Prime Focus Technologies does. They were just here. But it's also an area that seems to have grown a bit. Now, over at Bling, you guys were kind of really pushing the envelope with this. We are talking about on-set color, so tell me a little bit about how digital dailies has evolved in the course of your time at Bling.
Sure. I find when we started, it was the first cameras that we were working with were just red, and it's really evolved. And now walking around the floor here at NAB, it's really remarkable how many different options there are. So that side has been one big evolving circle every year, and being able to keep up with that and stay on the forefront. But I think for Bling, a lot of new advancements have happened and enabling people to do different on-set color workflows, but we've started to really work more often in production offices or more of a near-set environment. I personally feel like there's a lot of additional services that we can offer when we're in more of a near set environment versus on set. You know, there's no matter what they throw at us, if it's they shoot a really heavy amount of footage, or if they have 3 company moves, or if they need to wait to wipe cards before LTOs are done, or let's say they shoot on a camera that doesn't have the appropriate metadata to conform and we need to make new masters, whatever you throw at us, we can have finished by 9 a.m. if we're in a controlled environment. And typically, I don't know about the jobs that you guys are on, but we're starting to see a lot of jobs go and shoot in remote locations now that it's really more of an option, and we'll connect through an internet pipeline directly to editorial, and we'll push dailies right to their ISIS by morning.
So digital dailies, it sounds like, have become more standard. People are not afraid to do them anymore. Do they expect more?
Yeah, always.
Yeah.
Always.
All the time people expect more. That was certainly in the initial transition into digital. People never even stopped to think of how much more footage they were shooting than they had on film, because they thought of film as a specific commodity. Mm-hmm. And now it's the same thing with this proliferation of cameras, that nobody thinks anything of, oh, let me throw a GoPro at that, and also this new Arri camera we're going to test for this shoot today. By the way, we didn't tell you about that last week, so you're just going to have to handle it.
So is that on-set color, how has that come about? Has that been client-driven, or has that been companies such as yourselves thinking, hey, I bet we could do this also? Which direction has it come
I
from?
think it's really the DPs really drove
I would
it, because
agree.
they wanted that control.
Yeah, and I think that we're seeing a lot of different ways that that's happening. You know, with you can have LUT boxes, or you can have DITs grading, or some people are actually doing dailies on set. One thing that was interesting that we did on Forever in New York was we didn't have a DIT coloring on set, but the DP wanted to have creative control. So we brought in a dailies colorist, and we had him come in to receive the break-off, and we would have him take in a certain select few shots that really focused on what the scene was, and colored that and pushed it up to our application that the DP had. It's called Circle Takes. It's kind of like a Pix or Dax,
Right.
but it's now on the iPad on set, and it syncs with the cloud. So he was able to look at the iPad and say, okay, make a, tweak this, tweak that, bring this down a stop, and then that note went directly back to the colorist, and the notes were able to be implemented, and we didn't necessarily, have to impose on his situation on set. So that was, more people are starting to get a little bit more creative about how the DP makes those decisions.
Interesting. And you're nodding, Amy, you see a lot of the same thing?
Yeah, very similar. And you had mentioned remoting in to do color a minute ago, and that's something that we've been doing a lot on our remote shoots. So there will be some amount of color set, some LUTs, maybe a few stills will be sent. In some cases, it's a whole CDL value, but what we'll do is we'll actually remote in during the daily session, so the DP who is in New Mexico or New York or Atlanta can be in a session with the colorist who's sitting in a bay in LA.
Right, and that happens a lot, I take it.
Yeah, it's been happening
So
much
it sounds
more
like this
frequently.
has had a tremendous adoption rate. Do all DPs like this to be able to control the
I
color?
think some do, but I find it interesting that some take more of an old school approach, and I mean they still make remarkable films. Like on Whiplash, when we did that movie, the DP wanted to keep things very simple and color in not color on set, but just have it Rec 709 out to the monitors. But then he knew that there was a trust factor with our dailies colorist, and we could remote in, like she was saying. And some DPs like to keep it simple, focus on framing and performance, whereas other DPs get really crazy with it. In Toronto, we're starting to see a lot more people that are starting to do secondaries and really get funky with
Secondaries
their
on
looks.
set.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Do people ever preload LUTs so they can see their dailies with the LUTs that they came up with in pre-production, perhaps?
Sure. I mean,
absolutely.
I would agree. I think that sometimes we'll have color sessions with the DP. They will dial in a few looks, and that'll be brought to set, put on a LUT box, and there's a lot of different ways that we've seen that go.
Yeah.
Same with you guys?
Yeah, same thing. And, we found the trust issue, I think, is a really big one.
Talk about that, because that obviously is a huge issue in this.
Yeah, I mean, because you'll see, at least for us, we tend to find on our projects during the pilot is when it's the craziest. You have specific LUTs for every take of different things, and then you've got these different CDL values, and they want you to send back not only the baked-in review copy, but they want to see it directly on their dailies, on the Dailies system, or on an iPad or something like that. And then once they develop that trust with the colorist, we're in the 4th season of Longmire now, they really just send in, a couple of hero looks, as they call it, and then Mauricio goes through and he says, yep, I know where to put these, and that's that.
So it's interesting. So is the DI artist now coming out of the dark room and going on set? Do you see that?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, now that you can actually you can sometimes involve them in the front end to dial in those LUTs if you wanted to create a LUT workflow. I personally love, we were talking about this earlier, but just the simplicity of a base LUT with a CDL and, maintaining any type of some type of continuity with the color amongst what you see on set through the lab into VFX and into each department down the chain, online and final color, and making sure that information translates in an automated way that people will actually use. Because if it's not automated, like with the system like you were talking about of having a different LUT on every shot and then a different CDL, no one's going to touch that when it hits post because it's just too much work. But if you can keep it simple and you can say, okay, we're going to have a base LUT to get us into a certain color space that we're going to work in, and then we make our creative decisions within CDLs, we can easily hand that off to any department, and it can easily transfer through metadata, and it doesn't have to come from additional requests.
Right, and you mentioned the magic word CDL.
Yeah.
So I'm presuming that you also handle CDLs, because obviously if you can get all the way to the DI room and you don't have to start from scratch. I mean, I don't know how many people throw it all out and start from scratch, but it's obviously more time efficient if you can actually save these and rely on them with a CDL.
I don't think any. I mean, I've never, maybe you can speak to this as well, but I've never really met colorists that are going to start from that grade, but I would look at it more as a reference.
Yeah.
The DP wants to walk into the room and say, that's what I saw on set, take it off, now let's start. But what's important is just that you can get it there, and now you're looking at that color correction on the high resolution media and not the chase QuickTime that came from the offline that's a really compressed, crappy looking QuickTime.
Well, then a quick question. Are either of your companies ACES partners for the new Academy Color Encoding System?
Yes, we are.
Yay!
All right.
Yeah,
and we've started to get that request more and more lately.
Interesting.
And we have a show starting up right now that's looking into an ACES pipeline.
So what are with ACES in place as a standard and color happening on set, what are the possibilities?
Well, I've seen right now they're starting to, the job that we're prepping, we're looking at a live grade to color front workflow, and different software companies seem to be on a different version of that ACES space. So it's definitely something that you need to really get involved in really early in pre-production and make sure that if we're really going to go down that road, also that VFX can see that, and that your final colorist will. I mean, is that the same system for you?
Yeah, I think right now, because it is just standardizing on version 1 here at NAB, there is this strange proliferation of people who had been, in a committee or not in a committee where they were developing. Hopefully, once it's all been established and people adopt it, it's actually interesting. I feel like it'll take away certain of the things that different softwares have as a sort of benefit. Because, for example, we right now, the way that we transmit our color metadata between systems that are on set, near set, in post, it's very foolproof, it's very easy, it's a huge selling point for us. If everyone's doing ACES and it establishes this framework where you don't have to have our proprietary format, which, by the way, proprietary is a strong word, I should say, but you're not either trying to translate into and out of LUTs and CDLs and back and forth. You actually know, all right, we're using the ACES formats for transmitting that metadata. It doesn't matter what you were using for pre-pro, if you did a live grade, what was your on-set color, what's your Dailies color. That should hopefully make it a lot easier and make interoperability more.
I think
more
it
simple.
will, yeah. And I've seen certain jobs use kind of like a faux ACES system where they'll take, they say they're shooting red and they're shooting airy, and the airy is the more predominant camera. Maybe we want to use an input LUT to get everything into log C, and then we color, and then we use a different output transform, which is kind of similar to the concept of ACES getting everything into one space. It's kind of a half measure step, but ASUS is that next tier that we all need to get to.
Well, great. I'm afraid we've run out of time. It's been really, really interesting. I think this is such an interesting space right now, and I look forward to seeing the implications of ASUS play itself out. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for watching. Again, I'm Deborah Kaufman with the Entertainment Technology Center. Have a good rest of the day, and I'll see you at NAB 2016. Bye-bye.